had a pretty good harmonica teacher because I taught myself. But the harmonica has a long history of being a self-taught instrument. However, I did use this book. And so this is the book that started it all for me. I taught myself out of this blues harp book. I did also have the benefit of probably 3 or 4 years of my older brothers playing music. They both played harp. One of them played guitar more than harmonica, and one of them definitely played harmonica mostly. So on the inside cover of this book, you can see his autograph, Ryan Walters. Big brother Ryan Walters, who is a great harmonica player. He plays diatonic and chromatic and a number of other instruments, just like myself. So it runs in the family, and of course Mark Walters mostly on the stringed instruments. But let's talk about this book that was published in 1965, and there was a whole lot of stuff musically going on in 1965, but there was something very exciting going on in that year and then that time frame. A couple things. The folk revival in the United States. There was a folk revival, and a lot of these folk artists were doing old blues songs, performing old blues songs, and the blues revival was part of the folk revival. And we also had something called the British invasion, where Americans were suddenly very interested in what musicians were doing across the pond, so to speak. So, obviously we have the Beatles and the Rolling Stones are big part of the British invasion. The Who, eventually Led Zeppelin. And the thing that was going on, you'll notice with these groups, a lot of the lead singers also played harmonica. And that was patterned after American blues, traditional American blues of the singer being the harmonica player. And so you have guys like Robert Plant that played harmonica, Mick Jagger and Brian Jones, both from Rolling Stones. John Lennon played some harmonica, right? Roger Daltrey from The Who was a pretty accomplished diatonic harmonica player. And I'm sure there's others. The British musicians were absolutely fascinated with American blues, and they were more interested in it than we were. And that helped the blues revival, because we were like, wait a minute, that song that they're doing is actually a cover song of a Muddy Waters tune. So even guys like, so in 1965, I just took a look at the top 40 songs. There was 2 hit songs by Tom Jones. Tom Jones, a real Vegas-y guy from Wales. I watched a documentary. He was totally into Howlin' Wolf. Now, I don't think Tom Jones picked up the harmonica, but he was. It affected him vocally that he was listening to so much American roots music and African American influenced music, and it affected the way he sang. And so anyway, not to get off on Tom Jones, but that's what was going on. The author of this book, Tony Little Son Glover, he was part of the folk revival and part of the blues revival. This book, to me, carries the energy of that time. Tony's an amazing writer. He's very funny and entertaining, a good writer. Apparently, he was a music critic as part of his gigs. I don't know every detail of the whole timeline of his life, but he was a guy who was hanging around the University of Minnesota and playing blues harmonica and would play duos and trios, and then kind of the trio became semi-famous, Corner, Ray, and Glover. And all those guys had nicknames, Little Son Glover and Snaker and what's the other guy's name? I can't think of it right now. So that trio was inducted into the Minnesota Music Association Hall of Fame. I watched a video of, I think it was that event, and Bonnie Raitt was on stage. So the group sold a few records. And anyway, so that's Tony Lowell's son Glover. He was a harmonica book author. This was the first one. I venture to say there was no harmonica books on blues harmonica at the time. So he was blazing a trail, and he was a pioneer. Up to that time, learning blues harmonica was, the old-fashioned way of finding a mentor, or like a lot of people did, just phonograph records and just learning off the record. So this book is really great. Some people may have their criticism about it being old-fashioned or whatever. Just reading about his reverence for the artist. Now, so chapter 2, he does some harmonica history, but then he jumps right into the blues. Well, not right in, but he starts talking. Okay, harmonica history is more like chapter 2. Chapter 3 is blues harmonica history, and he introduces the 5 harp players that he's going to dig into later in the book, and that's Sonny Terry, and it is Sonny Boy Williamson 1.
My girl, she done quit me for somebody else. Now I'm sloppy drunk again, woman, sleeping all by myself. Now I would rather be sloppy drunk, sipping.
Sonny Boy Williamson 2.
I don't know. I don't know. But I'm still trying to get in touch with my baby to find out why she disappointed me so. I met
Jimmy Reed, and Little Walter Jacobs. So I would say that's a pretty good place to start with those 5 harp players. And so let me talk about a little bit about my harmonica history related to this book. 3 or 4 years of hearing my brothers play blues music. There was blues albums on the turntable that we were listening to. We listened to Louis Armstrong. We listened to Lightnin' Hopkins, Memphis Slim. And then as far as harp players, there was a Sonny Terry record that we listened to over and over and over. Little Walter Jacobs, my brother eventually purchased some Little Walter albums. And then we had Sonny Boy Williamson 2 albums. Howlin' Wolf, the Howlin' Wolf album was a big deal to me. So I had all that history. One day I grabbed my brother's harmonica and was bending notes. Just like I knew how to do it just by hearing it over and over. My brother says, that's pretty good. Play some more. And then he says, try to get one note at a time. And then he kind of explained to me about one note at a time, which really is the starting place for all harmonica students. Can you play one note at a time? That's where I start if I'm teaching a beginner, It's like we can't really progress until you're able to play one note at a time with a clean sound. So that was the one harmonica lesson that I got from Ryan. Then both my brothers, after high school, they moved out as quickly as they could. This book was left behind along with a C Golden Melody harmonica, and I went to work. And the first thing that I played in this book, this is chapter 6 in the book, And it looks like this is the first exercise. I vividly remember this being the first thing I played. You know, the thing that I didn't know about this book is that there's an instruction record. And I figured that the instructional recording came out, you know, maybe 10 years after the original publication. But he mentions it in the original, or he mentions it in the introduction to this book.
Here's a few exercises. The melodies are kind of simple, stupid in fact, but they'll give you practice in single note playing, which is a good thing to have. Dig the diagram for hot cross buns. The number tells you which reed you use, which hole. The arrow tells you whether it's an in-breath or an out-breath. An arrow pointing up is an out-breath. An arrow pointing down is an in-breath. The length of the arrows is the relative length of the notes. Here's the way hot cross bun sounds.
Copyright 1965. 12th printing, August 1971. So that's a good sign that even that early it was had that many printings. I think they were selling a number of copies of the book. He goes on in this book, and we have Mary Had a Little Lamb, Row, Row, Row Your Boat, Three Blind Mice. Those first, and then Skip to My Lou. Those first two songs, if you know my harmonica method for Chromatic, Volume 1, are going to be familiar because I start with Mary Had a Little Lamb, but it has nothing to do with let's focus on one note at a time. It has to do with, can we play these simple songs in 4 different keys? When you get to Volume 2, can I do a little commercial for my harmonica method? Volume 2, by that time you'd be playing Mary Had a Little Lamb in 8 different keys. You know, and by the time you get to the key of E, that's a little bit of a challenge, you know? So don't dismiss these little corny songs. He calls them insipid melodies. And then on the instructional recording, which I found on YouTube. Now, so you can download an MP3 from somewhere, Amazon or something, I saw it. You can get the original floppy vinyl record, or now you can also get a CD. Or you can find it on YouTube. I'm not sure if it has the entire thing on YouTube, but I suspect that it does. It's on Folkways Records. So that's that. I was rolling with the book here back in 1977. The year was 1977 when I was teaching myself harmonica from the Blues Harp book. I can't explain every chapter. It'll be too long of a video. Just bear with me. Chapter 6 is some music theory about cross harp or second position. Chapter 7 is how, cross harp how, and then this is the first bluesy thing that we play. He's got one thing I liked about this book, and I still like it, is that he uses what I call the harmonica tablature. I call it phonetic harmonica tablature, because he not only does he have whole numbers, but he has these articulations. We start with dit, dit, da, da, and then we go into like a train whistle where we go wah, wah. Like he actually spells the word out. Wah has 2, 4, has 6 A's in it. W, 6 A's, and an H. So it's like wah. Then we have a rhythm where we go da, dit, dit, ha, ha, ha. Da, dit, dit, ha, ha, ha. Da, 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 da. And then he does have standard notation rhythm anyway. So this is how I learned. And this is what I started with on the blues was holes 2 and 3, it says. Then he says, let's add a whistle on holes 3 and 4 with tremolo. We're not bending notes yet, just tremolo. 3 and 4. he has you drawing and blowing. Anyway, the rhythmic patterns get a little bit more complicated. There's a lot of time spent on playing rhythm. And so I was getting one note at a time. I was getting kind of this rhythm harmonica. And I thought that was a pretty good foundational place to, I currently think it's a great foundational place to start. Chapter 8 is about bending notes. I mentioned I already knew how to bend notes. However, my note bending was mostly limited to hole 4 draw. The book got me bending hole 2 draw, which is more of a challenge. There's more to pull down. Hole 4, you're only bending a half step. Hole 2, you're bending a whole step. And of course, hole 3 is even more, has more depth to it. But hole 2 was a challenge, but I did what the guy said. I can't remember what he said, but I was bending notes. I was on my way, right? Then he gets into positions. He has a whole chapter on third position, because we did first position in the, Mary Had a Little Lamb. No blues lessons in first position, but then he gets into cross harp, right? And we're playing rhythm and we're bending notes. And then he gets into third position. And then here's where a lot of people criticize the author. Chapter 10, fourth position. So he kind of famously gets this wrong, because what he's actually talking about is playing in the key of E on a C harmonica, which is fifth position. That is fifth position. Let me explain very quickly the position numbers. We just simply go around the circle of fifths. So first position is C on a C harmonica. Second position is G on a C harmonica. Third position is D. He gets all of those correct so far. Then fourth position would be a fifth up from D, which is A. So fourth position is A on a C harmonica. Then fifth position is E. So to be honest, those are the 5 positions I play the diatonic in. So anyway, don't be too hard on the beloved and late Tony Little Son Glover. He passed away at the age of 79 in 2019. I'm so thankful for his life and legacy. And this book that he wrote, did I mention that he wrote another book called Rock Harmonica? I think Oak Publications was like, hey, buddy, your blues harmonica book is doing pretty good. Could you write a rock harmonica book? So he wrote Blues Harp, Rock Harp. Then he wrote the Blues Harp Songbook. And then he co-authored with 2 other guys an autobiography of Little Walter Jacobs, which the title is escaping me at the moment. But then the internet mixes Tony Glover up with another Tony Glover who wrote some murder mysteries. It is 2 different guys, even though sometimes it will show the image of Tony Glover, Tony Little Son Glover. Chapter 12, A Taste of Harp Styles. This is actually where we dig in, and this is great because he goes to the kind of traditional way to that early 20th century musicians were learning to play music, which is the phonograph. He's like, get these records and listen to them, and I'm going to talk about the records. And he does a little bit of tablature. He does some tablature for some of the licks on the record. But we get into Sonny Terry. We had a Sonny Terry album, but we didn't have this one. So I never worked with the albums like he said to do. I just kind of took off. I read this book and I was doing rhythm, single notes, bending notes, playing the blues. Now, one thing that seems to be very important to the author is talking about tonic, subdominant, and dominant. Those are fancy words. most musicians nowadays, though that's like traditional music theory language, tonic, subdominant, dominant. Most musicians now are just using the number system. So we take the major scale and we number it 1 through 7. And so here's G. That's a 1 chord. This is a 2 chord. And there's the 5 chord. Now in the blues, we make these chords dominant in quality, meaning they each have a flat 7. So here's the tonic, or the 1. And here's the subdominant. Back to the 1, or the tonic. When we get to the 5 chord, that's what we call the dominant. Which could be confusing because dominant is the quality of the chord as well as the 5 or the. Does that make sense? It's a little confusing to use dominant because in the blues all 3 chords, 1, 4, and 5, are dominant quality. Anyway, let's move on with the book. We talked about Tony Little Son Glover and the other books that he wrote.
I first started playing harmonica because I wanted to sing, but I couldn't. I had a terrible voice, and harp was a way to sing with an instrument.
Okay, so he starts with Sonny Terry, and then he goes on to Sonny Boy Williamson, and he recommends an album for you to listen to for him. Then he gets into Sonny Boy Williamson too. I was never comfortable with the fact that this guy stole somebody else's stage name. I never liked that. However, the author is like, he just doesn't even mention that. He says, as far as I'm concerned, this Sonny Boy was the all-time, non-stop boss of blues harp. So it's a little hard to write objectively about his style. And it's not only his harp, it's his songs and the way he sings them. For my bread, he was one of the top bluesmen, period. So he really liked Sonny Boy Williamson. As you read this book, there's a lot of 1965 kind of hipster beatnik lingo. It's really, it's cool. It makes the book feel like 1965. And then we get into Little Walter, which he doesn't tab out any of the licks, but most of these, I think all of these, the albums that he recommends, he has the key of the harp that you use on each track. When he gets into Little Walter, he's like, I'm not sure if this is a chromatic or what. I can't tell. So then we get into Jimmy Reed. It's interesting with Jimmy Reed. He says, if you don't have a rack, play with both hands holding the harp or sit on one of them. No hand effects are used. Who cares? But I guess he wanted to be like, let's be like Jimmy Reed and play these with no hand effects, these songs. A lot of first position stuff with Jimmy Reed. Chapter 13, solo versus lead harp versus accompanying. I think that if you were explaining to a harmonica student back in the blues revival, like, hey buddy, it's cool to play along with the singer. You can kind of play with the singer, but don't play over him. When it's your solo, like jump in the spotlight and really jam. That's what that chapter's all about. There's a chapter about amplified harp. Instead of appendix, he uses the word kidney. Kidney 1. I don't dig appendixes at all. He's like just being funny. So here is guitar harp relationships, a bunch of quick reference charts for jamming with guitar players. Okay, you're playing an E, I need an A harp for cross harp, right? And that's all he has listed is cross harp. No, no, that's not true. Second, third, and even what he calls fourth position. See, the thing with the positions is Tony Little Son Glover, he knew about first and second and third, and then he discovered a new one. He said, I was listening to the stereo and I heard the song and it was like in a different position. So according to him, it was the fourth position that he learned about. So to him, it was fourth position. But anyway, yeah, so what confused me about this is that there are different guitar tunings, as if you're tuning the whole guitar down a whole step to D, not just the first string, but the whole guitar. He's got those charts. Then he has C tuning. If you tune your guitar, the topmost string, instead of the E, down to C. That's 2 whole steps lower. So I was like, what's going on with these? Is this a mistake? But no, it's the alternate guitar tunings. And then for each of the positions, he has whole number and blow and draw for the tonic, subdominant, dominant. It seemed to be very important for him. And I think that's a good idea. Do you know where the 1, the 4, and the 5 chord are in third position? Like, can you do that? Anyway, this book got me started. I'm going to play a little clip of myself from June 1980. That was the earliest I found. I just was digging through some old cassettes. I know it's crazy, but I have this. Anyway, I'm going to play this clip, and you can see that you can hear that I was pretty good on my B flat Hohner harmonica.
This is June the 11th, 1980. It's 68 degrees out right now, and the barometer's on 28 degrees. And this is B flat harmonica.
I do have a video clip that I'm not going to include. It was 1982 or 1983, probably 82, where there was a video, and I was just, I'm sorry, but I was smoking. I was smoking. Maybe I will include a little bit of that. The whole solo's on my YouTube channel. Anyway, I'm going to get into some more books from my music library. I have a few harmonica books, and this is kind of a series I'm doing. And there's the bookshelf. Not. I think I might do this one next. And this book was a big deal to me too. This book was a really big deal for me. As far as how kind of the attitude that I had in approaching the chromatic harmonica. So we'll continue the book series, and I'll talk to you guys later.